G'day everyone, it's Coach Michelle J. Raymond, your trusted guide for building your business and your brand on LinkedIn. And we are continuing on our series of friends that I want to talk to, and I'm going to let you listen because this is going to be a fabulous conversation about company pages. Zoe Berman, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is your second time on the show, so I appreciate you coming back because when it comes to company pages and specifically everyone, we're going to be talking about company pages premium. It's probably the most often question I get asked. And just so you know, I got Zoe on the podcast because people are even asking Zoe right now, are you getting paid by LinkedIn to promote company pages premium to other people? All right, Zoe, I know people want to talk about all things LinkedIn premium, but we're not going to go straight into that. I'm going to make them wait. Classic podcast host maneuver. But I want to talk about something that's probably more important right now, and that is company page reach. It's pretty much declined over the last 5 years. Many people would say to almost non-existent in the home feed. And you've probably seen this firsthand across the board with your clients. How are you navigating this shift with them? Because I think your experience working with so many different company pages is definitely going to help some people out there that might be struggling with this.
You know, it's not new to this year. In 2023, we launched with an event that we hosted at Google called It's Not About the Post, because we were opening up our feed. You know, you go into LinkedIn, you're scrolling through your feed. And I was saying to people, how many company page posts are you seeing in your feed? You follow how many brands? Are you seeing those brands? You follow them. Are you seeing it in your feed? And even back then, 2023, and since then, the reach just keeps getting worse. I think in those days, there was about 11 posts in 100 in your feed. Now you're lucky if it's 1 or 2. And even if you go to the company page and you ring the bell and you engage with the page and you follow the people and you're doing all the right things on LinkedIn, go to your feed, scroll through. The only content from brands that you're seeing is stuff that's being promoted to you. They're paying for you to see it. So it begs the question, who's viewing company pages? Where are these likes and impressions and engagements coming from? And it's a really big challenge. So we face it with 3 main strategies. Number 1 is to invest in people. You know, if you're going to an event, great, put the event post on your company page. Your company page is a bulletin for what is happening at your company, and it supports all the other activity. We invest in layers of advocacy, thought leadership, ambassadors, and then everybody else. And we get everybody else to like and repost the company page profile content. We get the ambassadors to create their own original content. We get thought leaders to create thought leadership. And if you invest in people, we see that that's how you're reaching your audiences. Then you're getting page views, you're getting likes, you're getting engagement on your company profile. It's not coming organically through people's feeds. The second thing that we invest in is premium. We're slowly bringing our clients to a place where they're understanding LinkedIn want you to pay to play. And it's so bad that, and we'll come back to this when we talk specific about premium, but if you switch it on and then switch it off again, like you do their 1 month free trial, everything will tank completely. By the way, you'll see this on your personal profile as well. If you boost your posts and then stop boosting your posts, all your posts don't go anywhere organically. But that's social media. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are pay-to-play platforms. The people who agree to pay see bigger returns than the people that don't agree to pay. And then the third thing is, and I hate to say this because we're very much an organic-led agency, but we do encourage boosting for reaching audiences, but we do it as an add-on. You know, you've got to get organic right. You can't just do paid media and paid boosting and expect that you're going to have results. You have to have social first good content with good advocacy in place, and then you can say, okay, now how do we level up? How do we 10x? And then you go and boost everything. So those are our 3 wins to get social media working.
Look, and I'm so glad that you came at it from all those different angles because you know me, we've been friends on the platform for the last 5 years talking all things company pages. And from that perspective, I always get dragged into every post that's out there that tells me company pages are a waste of time. To your point, yes, they don't show up in the home feed anymore. I can't get on this podcast and lie to you or anyone out there and say, oh no, everything's sunshine and fairies. Because if you log on yourself, you very quickly and easily see, as Zoe shared, that your organic posts are not in that feed. And then the argument comes, well, why bother? And it's like, but there's more to company pages. There's more to building a brand. There's more to social selling, or whatever way you want to look at it, LinkedIn marketing, than just post impressions. And I love using the term the power of two. Bring the employees together, bring the brand together, and we've all got to focus on the same goal. So yeah, I was nodding. For those of you who are listening to this on the audio podcast, I have been just nodding the whole time Zoe's been talking. I absolutely agree with that. Boosting's interesting. It's not something that I particularly use that often for myself or clients, but you're right. You can't just pay money on LinkedIn to make bad content work. If you haven't done the work, the foundations like positioning and messaging and what kinds of graphics work or land with your audience, or the copywriting, then you're just literally making a donation to LinkedIn. So if you are doing that and using that boost button and just making that donation, I'm going to put my bank account details in the show notes, and you can just send your money straight to me. I promise I'll do more with it. I'll share it 50% with Zoe because we can save you. Like, it's just, it kind of gets a little crazy. But let's talk about LinkedIn Company Pages Premium. So it's been around for the best part of a year or so now. And it was the sign of things to come. I think 2025 is definitely the year of pay to play on LinkedIn. And it's been a bit of a shock to the system. But when you're working with your clients, do you recommend to them to invest in Company Page Premium? And what kind of businesses does this actually make sense for? So we're talking budget-wise, in Aussie dollars, we're sitting around 100 to 130 Aussie dollars, depending if you pay annual around the world. Like, how do you decide who it's good for and who should save their money?
That's a great question. And I'll start first by saying, when LinkedIn Premium first came out, it, like any LinkedIn new feature, it was half-baked. It wasn't available to everyone. And even now, there are different prices for different companies. Like, you go to sign up one company and it's, like you said, about $90, and another company it's $130. And there's also different features available to different companies, which I discovered just by accident. So it's still in its processes of becoming a real valuable tool. But there's no doubt that LinkedIn have gone all in on this because they've tanked to reach for everybody. And it's becoming clearer that if you're willing to pay for the premium, you're going to see bigger and higher reach. And people are still questioning it. With us, it was a decision of, we really just needed one feature on for one of our clients, which is the auto invite. And the way the auto invite works is anyone who engages with your content on your page is automatically invited to follow the brand. And this was for a VC, a venture capital firm, where they have a lot of engagement because there's a lot of founders and startups in their ecosystem. Their posts get amazing organic engagement, but their page is growing really, really, really slowly. What we found when we switched it on, and what happened, and I get accused of being a LinkedIn lackey and promoting this, what happened was they didn't have the option to switch it on. And I had it on for a different client, and I was like, it'd be so cool if I could have this. So I wrote a post and I tagged LinkedIn, and I'm like, why is this not available to other people? And someone from LinkedIn reached out to me and said, I can switch it on for you. And I said, well, here are all the pages we want to switch it on for. So I then had someone at LinkedIn I could talk to, and it became a whole matter of switch it on. Why is this page different from that page? Why is the cost different? But what we did see is, apart from that one feature, the pages that switch it on, their reach grows, their visibility grows, their credibility grows. And there are some kind of cool features that are optimized now for your landing page. So when people do come to your company profile, you've got a carousel that you can have, like a slide of, I think, 5 banners at the top. You can have featured awards. You can have a customer testimonial. So it's giving you things that are kind of leveling up the landing page that people come to when they come to your company profile, as well as all the benefits of the added reach and the added engagement. And it's a sad story to tell, but we're in the process of starting year-end reports and Q4 reports. And for most of our clients, like just yesterday, we had a client say to us, what are the highlights from this year that I can tell my C-suite? I'm going into a meeting, and we just couldn't, didn't matter how we manipulated the data. I said, let's take the top 20 posts from this year, put them next to the top 20 posts from last year, and maybe that will give us something. And even there, both reach, engagements, and click-throughs, there was nothing good about this year. And this is one of the brands that didn't switch on premium.
It's really interesting because, you know, when people come to me, and you know that everybody knows me for company pages, and I'm out there speaking, I've written a book on it, and people will put me up on this pedestal. And when I start working with clients and we're doing all the cool stuff, but the numbers are still sliding down, and they're looking at me going, Michelle, like, what's going on? And I'm like, no, like, you know, just trust me, we'll work our way back up. But there is that period of time where I know that there's a lot of people out there listening, social media managers, marketing managers, that are running these company pages and thinking, what the heck do I do? Because nothing that they've tried, and it can work on all kinds of other platforms, but when they come to LinkedIn, things just aren't growing. And I used to say to people, number of followers, it's not that big a deal, until I had a bit of a change of heart and epiphany. We look to that as social proof. And the bigger the number of followers, the more the page is held in that higher esteem. And I think that then attracts more people. It's like the, you know, nightclub that's got the lineup out the door around the block. Of course, we want to see what's going on in there, so we line up as well. And so that follower growth and helping people grow that quicker, I now see is much more valuable than potentially when I recorded a podcast episode on that feature about a year ago. I was like, yeah, does it make a difference? Actually, I think it does now. But for the people who are thinking, okay, we can afford, you know, whatever the budget is for company page premium, what feature do you think has had the biggest impact for your clients? Is it the follower growth that you see is the biggest one, or is there something else that you really love?
I think it's the craziest one. When you go in to invite people to follow your page, you can actually now look at your competitor and see their followers,
I know.
which is insane if you think about it. The only thing to remember is that the person doing the inviting is like, you know, all those notifications you get in LinkedIn saying so-and-so has invited you to follow this page or follow this newsletter or follow this brand. You're the person sending out the invite. And I think company pages get 250 invites a month, but you can be really strategic and targeted with it. And it also gives you the option to choose by job title or role or whatever. So you can actually geo-target it. So I can go in and I can say, for a brand that we're representing in treasury banking, which is like, it's so niche, I can go and say, I want to find people in the US with this job title, whatever, and then invite them to like the page. And that is a game changer, because they tend to, we used to see about a 5% accept rate, I think, which is really low. I mean, it's nothing. If you're inviting 100 people and you've got a 5%, that means you're inviting 5 successful people to follow your brand a month. It's not going to bring you hundreds of followers. But now we see about 20, 30% success rate, because you're much more targeted in the people that you're inviting to follow your brand. And they're more likely to follow because this is of interest to them than because you just randomly knew them because you worked with them 5, 10, 15 years ago and you're connected to them on LinkedIn.
Look, and this is the reminder to everybody that's listening. If you aren't taking advantage of those 250 page invite credits each month, I think that that's a missed opportunity. I know that there are people out there that used to say to me, Michelle, like, you can't send a connection message with them, so they're bad and evil and we shouldn't do it. And now those same people, because there's been such a shift over on personal profiles, if you don't pay, you can't send connection messages. So now I think connection messages are out the window. And from that perspective, now we're all like going, who even wants one? I don't want to get one. And I've actually found when we're doing it for our clients, if we're out there connecting personally, no message performs hands down 1,000% better than anything else. If we put a message on there on that first one, they're like, you're trying to sell me something. You're out. So I think that's going to work well for company pages now. No one's going to be sending messages.
To add to that, your employees have 30 people a month they can invite as well. The only thing I'll say is, and I see it myself in my own notifications every day, is it's getting really crowded and noisy. And after a while, all these invitations become meaningless. And if every company is relying on that to grow their company brand, it's a problem. To go back to your point about follower growth, in our reporting this year, we made a big change. We started showing everything by visibility, resonance, credibility, and opportunity. And credibility is that what you were talking about. It's those page followers and mentions and tags and things like that. That's credibility. Like that's seeing the like how well your company is perceived. And so follower growth becomes important. But one of the things we keep reminding our clients when they're looking at competitors, they're like, why is this competitor growing like 30% faster than we are? Because their competitor is using job ads with the auto apply on LinkedIn. And every time someone clicks to apply for a job, so they put up one job, it gets 1,000 applicants, they get 1,000 new followers. Or
I know.
800 and something. Some people turn it off, but it's an auto thing to follow the brand when you apply for the job. And only if you choose to turn it off, then it doesn't follow the brand. So, we've even got clients who are saying to us, okay, we want to start using job ads that don't exist, jobs that don't exist, just to grow their page following. Then this gaming of the system and also the auto invites and the inviting and the inviting and the inviting and inviting, after a while, it all becomes meaningless. And it's a problem. Like genuine, authentic growth and authentic voice and authentic social first content is the way to win, and or advocacy and thought leadership and all of that stuff. If you're just there to game the system so that you can say, I've got 1,000 new followers, or I've got slightly more followers than my competitor, are you really getting value and ROI out of that? No.
Oh, I've got my eyes rolling and my teeth gritted as I listen to that, because you are right. Like all those stupid automation tools and things that promise to get around LinkedIn's limits and blah, blah, blah. I've been on a mission. I now actually have an email address to report automation tools. So just shout out to all of the listeners. If I come across a tool that breaks the LinkedIn rules, I'm dobbing on them, right? Because it ruins it for the rest of us. And I've just had enough. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're just ruining it for all of us. And from that perspective, I love LinkedIn, but I have definitely struggled this year where there have been times when I've fallen out of love with it, with the combination of lots of things that all happened throughout the year, lots of bumps, lots of lumps, lots of gut punches, it felt like. But I got to the point where I was like, no, I love this platform and what it can do for businesses. I've got to get my head back in the game. And I actually have come to the realization all of these things have just flushed out who are the great marketers that can adapt and get this stuff sorted, and who are the ones that are going to try and cheat the system because they've skipped over all of the basics and the foundations and the strategy. You don't need to do that kind of stuff if you go back and get your foundations right. And I'll get back off my soapbox right now and take a chill pill, because I want to ask you a question, because it's not very often, Zoe, that I can go and hang out with someone and talk all things company pages and then be excited like you are. So this is like my Christmas coming today, where I get to talk all things company pages with someone else that loves them. But I have to ask, for everything that's been going on right now, your team, I would love to know what kinds of things you've been testing and what types of content are you finding that consistently perform best on company pages? Can you share some of your secrets with our listeners?
Yeah, so it's great. I love this question because I get these brands that come along and they're like, we are in computational computing and our audience is really technical, and like they think that the content has to be completely different. And I'm like, what works on LinkedIn for the algorithm and what we see works are carousels and galleries, right? And we start from there, and then we go to, single images and video. although everyone says video is the content platform, it's a huge investment and the ROI is not there. And we just don't see the value in the video that we thought would be there this year or that we used to see. So our order of preference is a gallery, which is the easiest. It's just loads of images. Then a carousel, which takes a lot more work and it's more designed. And then a static image, and then a video, and then a plain text. And it's just as simple as that. Now, within the galleries, what we're discovering is you can get super duper duper creative. And we've got one big enterprise brand that everybody knows. And I would love to be able to just like throw it out there, but I can't. But what we did was we've developed a way to animate using GIFs so that when it displays the 4 images, they move across all 4 in a coordinated way. Each one is actually just a standalone GIF. And then you've got your plus symbol with all your extra images after that. So it visually is wow. You see it. And then the other one to that, the add-on to that is to sometimes have static, sometimes moving. So because you can add multiple images to a gallery, and some of them can be GIFs and some of them can be static. Again, if your first main image moves and then everything else is static, or this one moves and this one's static, but something jumps from here down to the bottom image because you've timed it and you've planned it that way, it is wild. Like we've had something blow up in the bottom image and then all of a sudden fireworks come out in the top image. So listen, this is an investment in stop, think, plan, test. We have a testing group on LinkedIn where we can upload content, see that it works, see that everything coordinates properly. And we're doing much, much more of these kinds of formats because we know that they work really well.
I love that. I haven't seen any of those. After the podcast, if I can have some secret squirrel, top secret clearance to come and check these out, because that sounds super cool. For me, I'm going to ask you one more question about the types of content. So there's probably 2 that I love that you didn't mention, and they are polls and newsletters. I still think polls, despite what everybody else is saying right now, for me and my clients, they work a treat. Again, method to the madness, 2 choices, make someone choose really easily and pick a hot topic in the industry. That's my disclaimer. If you give them 4 options and they're all blah, blah, you already knew the answers anyway, they don't work. So can we just like put those ones aside, press the buttons on a hot topic and get people into it? But newsletters, I still love. I've been a fan of them since day one. How do you find them for your clients? Are they part of what you're promoting, or is it no deal, we're doing that elsewhere?
Yeah. So I'll start with polls. When you put them side by side with the metrics of all your other content, they sit in like 3rd or 4th place. So we don't often do them, but it is a fun way to break up content, we find. And I used to say, listen, there's not a lot of value in them because if you're expecting hundreds of or thousands of people to answer. Having said that, we'd had some standout examples. Like we had a cyber client where the CEO, and again, it was from a personal profile, not from a company profile, but he asked, should companies pay ransomware? I have my opinion, but I'm curious about yours. Controversial topic, and everybody had an opinion on it. So 500,000 votes later, and he was like thrilled. Then the company page did the exact same poll and like 300 replies later. It just didn't have that. And it's same topic, same controversy, same people with opinions, but less people see it because it's on a company profile. So that was number 1. Number 2, I got taught a lesson because I, say to my clients, there's no point doing a poll unless you're really creative with it and whatever. But we had a client that wanted a series of polls leading up to a survey results that were coming out. So they would take some of the questions from the survey, put it into a poll. And the guy came back to me on our weekly meeting and he said to me, you wouldn't believe it, but I picked up 2 new clients this week based on that poll because it was so niche and the questions were related to a pain that one of their customers had. And even though that actual poll had only had something like 15, 20 answers on it, the 2 within the 15, 20 were potential new clients. So value isn't always measured in hundreds of views, thousands of likes, and millions of impressions. It's measured in you've got the right audience with the right message at the right time, and you've ticked 3 boxes, and then magic happens on social media.
as we've been talking, I was wondering, and I haven't looked at this or done any analytics, and you're like my go-to when it comes to analytics. Like, you know that that's not my strong point, never has been, never will be. But I'm wondering with Company Pages Premium, if you have 300 engagements on your poll, I wonder if they get invited to follow the page if they're not already, because that could be fun. That could be a fun way to blow the right audience up, not just trying to get an audience for the sake of it, but getting people that are interested in that. And I think it's probably easier to get them to engage in a poll than what it is sometimes with company page posts. Now, I don't know if you have any insights in that, but it was just an idea that was popping into my brain as you said that, because polls could be an easy way that people could say vote either way and then they get auto invited. That would be cool if that worked.
If you go back to that VC example that I gave, they do polls because they're polling their startup founders about the biggest pains that they have and raising funds and whatever. They switched on their premium because they had one KPI. You ready for it? Grow our page followers. And all I wanted to do was switch on the auto invite. And we see they have about 17,000 followers, if I'm not mistaken. And we see around 90 to 150 followers a month on auto invite.
Wow, that's pretty high, because I would say historically, even if you look at just the company page invites, like if you're sending out 250, you probably get 60 to 80 if you're coming from the right person and super targeted and using all of those filters. So that's interesting. I'm going to watch this space and do some testing of my own. To all of our listeners that are out there, I think there's one more important thing that you and I can discuss that I think has probably impacted a lot of people out there, either those that are starting out in their career as social media managers who often get handed the company page. The last person in, most junior, gets handed the company page, or we're at the other end where you're a one-person marketing team and you're responsible for the company page and everything else. Or we've got agencies that might be listening to us as well, similar to what you and I run. But from that side of things, I want to talk about the feeling of, I don't know, I guess being worn down by everything that's been going on with company pages. On one hand, if you listen to everyone on the feed, they say they're a waste of time. Don't bother. Just promote your employees, get employee advocacy going, ignore your page. And, people are getting paid to do these jobs and doing their best, and then logging onto LinkedIn and getting just slammed. And then the numbers are sliding down out of control despite your best intentions. So if someone out there is listening and feels like they've been doing all the right things, but not seeing results, what advice would you give them, the wisdom of your experience for the new year?
First of all, sympathy. Let's just take a deep breath, because it is hard and painful. As you rightly said, I have an agency, so it's like times this by 50 clients, and the pain is very real. So I really feel the pain for every single person out there. Take a deep breath. And if you're struggling to convince your company that advocacy is worth it, and if you're struggling to get people to buy into advocacy, start slow. Pick one person. Okay, let's say if you set a goal of one person, or if you've got 3 product lines, maybe pick 3 people, 1 in each. Pick an ambassador, one person that you mentor, that you make it easy, that you create content for, right? And you just keep feeding them and making it easy for them. And even though that's not in your job title and it's not in the scope of work, and we do it as an agency, I said to one of my clients last year, for free, I want to start mentoring ambassadors. Bring me 3 people a quarter and let me take them through a process. And within a quarter, some of them fall and fail, and they were never meant to be ambassadors in the first place. And other people fly and soar, and before you know it, they don't want my help. They're creating their own content because they're seeing the value. They're going to exhibitions and shows, and people know who they are. They're getting invited to more speaking opportunities. They're being quoted in the press, and it ties into the whole marketing stack, PR, and it's going to start tying into GEO, which is, the agentic engine optimization, so that you can show up in ChatGPT and LLMs. Everybody's talking about that, and everyone's saying PR isn't dead. You need PR to get the mentions in agentic tools. Well, guess what? How do you get more PR? You big up your people and make them voices in the industry, and that comes through their social media. So everything ties in, and you can suddenly start to build this amazing visibility. And there's this thing called ego. So you take one person, you big them up, then suddenly, hold on, that's not the right person to be bigged up. I'm bigger than that person. You should be doing my profile. And then you start to get all these other people, investing and interested, and the interest grows. And if you start high in the C level, and you get them engaging with other people's posts with it, you can change an entire culture in a company to where a social culture, we're interested, we're engaged, the CEO is liking posts and engaging with his employees. And what is the knock-on effect of that? Success. And that success is translatable to the social media account managers. Now, what I will say is you've got to measure that, and that is the hardest thing on this earth. So when you're mentoring people, come up with a system of how they report back to you their success, so that you add that into your results. Yeah, here's how the company page is doing. But when you add this, which has 400 or 800 times the success that the company page has, that's your success. Make it your success. And then you have all of that under your belt, and you're not just saying, well, the LinkedIn algorithm is really bad at the moment, so everything's down and it's tanked. Well, last year we had one really standout post and everything else went like belly up this year. You can actually turn that narrative around, but you have to take charge, and don't use their excuses as your excuses, because they don't understand social media. If they understood social media, and I said this to Michelle earlier, if they understand social media, they're not asking you to put up a post today about a webinar that's starting in 2 hours time, thinking they're going to get hundreds more registrants to it, because that's not the way social media works. We know that, but we end up doing it because it ticks a box. Somebody told us to do it. They think it's going to bring them more registrants, so we do it. But we know, we're not dumb. We also know that if the blog went out today, the post doesn't have to go up today. You can actually think and be creative and do a really fun post with it, or break it up into 10 posts if you have time to think. But if everything on social media is the blog went up today, the post has to go up today, then what you end up with is really bad social media. And then the results are also not that great.
Look, you have the wisdom of your experience. I appreciate you sharing that. I think the main message that I want to echo is it's going to take teamwork. 2026 is going to be when page admins, whether you're part of the marketing team or the social team, need to have more conversations with their colleagues and ask for help and work out how can you use the page. I call it page advocacy, to help promote those individuals in the business. How do you shine a light on those employees so they do feel 10 foot tall, bulletproof, and that you are there to support them, not just someone that's saying, hey, I need your help. You need to help me get my KPIs. Because if you work out how to work together quickly as a team, that's where the real magic comes. And I say that like it's just easy and you can click your fingers and it will all happen. It doesn't. It takes time and commitment and the right culture behind it. So Zoe, thank you for everything that you have shared today. I know that there are people out there that are going to be listening to this and have really enjoyed it. So I'm going to put all of your details and how they can find you in the show notes so that they can connect with you and follow you on LinkedIn. But from my side of things, I wish you all the best for 2026. Thank you for coming back on the podcast. And until next time, cheers.